but at the time you have no reason at all to suspect that there's any foul play going on here. I mean, this is the government. You just, you don't think these are children. And it wasn't until, I guess, a couple of years later that stories started to come out about their missing. They got sent to undocumented sponsors or unvetted sponsors. I mean, I think we've all heard these reports, right? And at first it was 85,000 children, and then it's, now it's 300,000 children, or whatever the case may be. And I remember listening to a news story on it, and I just had a pit in my stomach, because it was the first time, I had connected that there was foul play or potential. Again, we don't know, sure, but that's the suspicion, right? And it just was mind-blowing to me. They were right there. They were in the camp. They were just right. We had them. They were right there. So had we known then what we know now, I don't think there wasn't anything we wouldn't have done to have mitigated the situation, to do everything we could for those children.
Fire and water me, going down deep, sing, oh, oh, bury me, carry me, oh, oh, far beneath, oh, oh, fire and water me, watching me sing, give me sing, creek, yeah. Oh, give me sing, creek, down to the river. Down to the river.
All right, we are out here in the beautiful state of Texas, in downtown Fort Worth, where we're filming a bunch of episodes of Sheepdog and Shepherd right before we go into the National Law Enforcement Officer Hall of Fame induction gala dinner party soiree. Which, by the way, it might sound a little bit like a party or soiree around here as we've been filming in this beautiful setting. We've had everything from airplanes, helicopters, trains, cars blasting music, and even
demonstrations.
Protests. Yeah. So, give us a little grace for any background noise that you hear. But I'm particularly excited about this episode because we have a good friend of mine who is doing some incredible work changing and saving lives. She is actually also one of the sponsors for the event tonight. And we're going to get to her introduction in a second. But first, why don't you tell everyone what the show is and who you are?
Yeah, this is Sheepdog and Shepherd. My name is Greg. I'm one of your co-hosts. I'm a pastor at the Church of 1122 in Jacksonville, Florida, where I lead our prison campuses and first responder ministry. And I am also a chaplain for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
Yeah, my family's been attending the Church of 1122 now for about a year and a half. We fled from the horrible state of Connecticut. And in 2016, 2017, my best friend in the world, Congressman Eli Crane, said, hey, I know you're Catholic, but there's this preacher that you got to check out. Pastor Joby, he's got a big old beard, bald, a little bit of a bigger beard than you. He's covered in tattoos, drinks whiskey, smokes stogies, loves guns, loves Jesus. You should check him out. And thus began our journey into 1122. And then I met this guy a little over a year ago now. Yeah. And we actually came out here together for the National Law Enforcement Officer Hall of Fame last year. So
our first mandate together.
It was our first mandate. And so now, without further ado, who are you?
I am Macy Nelson. I am the owner and CEO of Castle Enterprises.
So let's talk a little bit about, now you and I were blessed to have met about a year ago in Mar-a-Lago at a big event. And I was blown away by you and your story and what you do. So let's start there. What does Castle do?
Well, we started in disaster relief. So we did disaster relief work from FEMA, large oil and gas companies. That's where we started. That was our niche. Then COVID hit in 2020 and nobody knew what to do with COVID, right? And so it fell under disaster. People needed tents and generators and segregating people in hospitals and things like that. So our industry kind of got pulled into the disaster that was COVID. So we did a lot of that. And then in 2021, it became very interesting. The influx of migrants was a crisis, humanitarian crisis. Just the sheer quantity that was coming through, the government didn't have facilities for that level. And so that's when our industry got pulled into building soft-sided facilities for the migrants. And so we were a small piece of that. One of the things that we did, we'll talk about probably here in a little bit, the unaccompanied minors, but that's what Castle does. So we generally build base camps for the government and the military. Through the disaster relief, we evolved into doing that.
Macy, when we met in our first conversation, when we were chatting about what you do, you talked about the kids. And this is something that you are extremely passionate about. This is something that transcends politics, that transcends party lines, that is a conversation that has to be had about children. Talk to me about that passion.
Yeah, going back into the perspective of where we were in 2021, everything was moving very quickly. None of us had the information that we have now about things such as the unaccompanied minors. I mean, the world had never seen anything like what we were experiencing. There were thousands of children coming across our border with no supervision, no adults. I mean, families were dropping kids off at the border. I mean, I know in one of our camps we were working in, there was an 18-month-old, right, that was there. I mean, what is America going to do with an 18-month-old, right? I mean, and the children were showing up with phone numbers written on their clothes and arm for, members on this side, none of which would ever get called, right? It was true chaos. And also put into perspective, we don't know what we know now, 4 years later, about some of the underground workings and the evil, I guess, that goes on when it comes to children. There was no Sound of Freedom movie at that time. And so we were doing the best we could you're in your 3-foot world. You get a call, it's urgent, we got to have bedding, we got to have cots, we got to have this, we got to have it now. It's all hands on deck as a company. We were supplying the bedding and the cots for the unaccompanied minor camps in a couple of locations in Texas. I think there was 8,000, I think we had at one point across the 2 camps. And it went on for a couple of months. And we got a call, and we knew there were other unaccompanied minor camps throughout the country. I think there were some in California, there were some up in Michigan, throughout the country. And of course, our industry, very unique industry where we surge up in 48, 72 hours to build a whole mini city, right? There's only a few, it's a very small industry, and we all know each other. So we were aware of some of the other facilities that were up. And I think it was maybe 2 to 3 months into having our bedding there. And we were a very small part of this. We were not the prime contractor. We were just supplying the cots and the bedding to the camp. But we had about 8,000 children there. Couldn't keep up with demand. So 3 months in, I think it was, we got a phone call to come and demobilize our assets, that the camp was shutting down. And of course, we just thought, where are these, you instantly think, oh no, you don't want to, you want the project to go on, at this time, we're in our 3-foot bubble. We thought it would take time to process these children, place them. And then we just got a call out of the blue, come demobilize. And so we thought, well, maybe they're shutting down these camps and sending them to other facilities that may be more permanent. So, I personally did a little bit of a ring around, and their camps were being closed too, my colleagues. And so, it was at the time, again, we thought that's unusual, but nowhere did you suspect in your any part of you that there was any maliciousness or evil, right? We just thought, well, there's a plan we don't know about, we're not privy to. And so, that's what we did. We came and we demobilized our assets out of the facilities and went on about life. Then you fast forward a couple years, right? You always wonder what happened, but at the time you have no reason at all to suspect that there's any foul play going on here. I mean, this is the government. You just, you don't think these are children. And it wasn't until, I guess, couple of years later that story started to come out about they're missing. they got sent to undocumented sponsors or unvetted sponsors. I mean, I think we've all heard these reports, right? And at first it was 85,000 children, and then it's, now it's 300,000 children, or whatever the case may be. And I remember listening to a news story on it, and I just had a pit in my stomach, because it was the first time, I had connected that there was foul play or potential. Again, we don't know, but that's the suspicion, right? And it just was mind-blowing to me. They were right there. They were in the camp. They were just right. We had them. They were right there. So had we known then what we know now, I don't think there wasn't anything we wouldn't have done to have mitigated the situation, to do everything we could for those children.
You talk about potential foul play, right? Foul play can take a whole big variety of paths. Foul play could be intentional. It could be evil. It could be negligence.
Right.
But you're not off base, because we've seen congressional testimony
Yes.
about this. You and I are both personal friends with our border czar, Tom Homan. We were talking to him about it the other day, how he is hunting for nearly 400,000 missing children. And listen, as a dad of 4 little girls, that scares the heck out of me, because all I could think is, what's happening to those kids right now? Hundreds of thousands. One missing kid is too many. If there was one missing kid in a community would be up in arms if the government came and took that kid and nobody knew where that kid was. Right. It's a national disgrace. But, there was something that you said that I'm going to hand this part off to Pastor Greg here. But you said there, the not knowing if there was a bigger plan that we were not privy to. And I think that bigger plan can take 2 different roles. I think the devil's got bigger plans, and I think Jesus has bigger plans. Yeah. And we're not privy to either one of them, and we're all, as believers, trying to navigate how to do the right thing. Is that fair to say? You could probably put that more biblically sound than I can.
Yeah, I don't think the devil doesn't really have a plan. I mean, he knows he's defeated. I think he's just doing all he can to thwart whatever plan God has. The reality is we have an enemy who comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. And he's trying to steal, kill, and destroy everything about God's creation. And it starts with the little ones. It starts with children. It starts with the most innocent. And the reality is 300,000 or 400,000 children that are missing right now. We have no idea what's going on in their lives. And unfortunately, until our government is willing to look at the reality of there is evil in this world that is beyond our ability to comprehend and recognize, it is a spiritual battle that we are trying to fight in the flesh. And the Word of God says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. We wrestle against principalities and powers and spiritual beings. We have to look at this from an entirely different perspective. We have to look at this as a spiritual battle. And the sex trafficking industry that is just growing and growing and growing is a spiritual battle. And without the help of the churches, without the help of the secular world, citizens, law enforcement, and federal government, we don't stand a chance at defeating what is happening across this country. So,
but not for nothing, Greg, you even see that spiritual battle happening in some of our churches, right? There's the big C and there's the little c that we've often talked about. And we saw, for example, Catholic Charities was getting millions and millions and millions of dollars as an NGO to move illegal immigrants into the United States. Mm-hmm. And there is a problem within the church. I mean, we are blessed to be a part of an amazing church that does some unbelievable work, works with the Tim Tebow Foundation. Yep. Tim Tebow was in the water with you baptizing people last year. Yep. But there are churches that are more concerned about the dollar, the almighty dollar, and not offending people and not hurting feelings and pandering to a certain political agenda than they are concerned about protecting kids and helping bring people to Jesus. And so I do think that we have that spiritual battle that is waging war right now within the churches, within businesses. But you really are, Greg used the term recently for what we do for a living, which is marketplace ministry. You've been blessed to be in a position to make an impact through your company and through the work that you do. Tell us a little bit about your faith and your walk with God.
It is a work in progress. I knew we were going to talk about this, and I battled all day, because the devil will come in and lie. I feel like I'm going to be a fraud talking about how great my faith is because, just 10 minutes ago, I was, stressed beyond belief about, whatever it was I was stressed about. So I don't always live it. It's something I'm working on. But for me, I have to get there because, you can either live by faith or by fear. And I am constantly, I think like a lot of us business owners, we live by fear. You're always wondering about, where the next project's going to come from, and then it can grip you. And so then you've got to get back. And for me, because I'm not great at that, right? I'm headstrong and I'm independent, and that gets in my own way. It gets in God's way of working in my life a lot. I have to spend time every day. Every day. Something Joyce Meyer said, and I really enjoy sometimes listening to her. She's relatable for me. She's headstrong like I am, and she said, if I don't get my Jesus time, she goes, I can be holy in who I am in Christ until the people show up. Yeah. It's when the people show up I lose it. And so for me, it's a work in progress, and I have asked for the anointing on my business. And because I believe so hard in the anointing, that God can anoint people for different things, I treasure that. And it really becomes my moral compass on decisions I make. It's the old saying that this is not an ethical decision, it's a business decision. And that's where people go wrong, right? And so for me, am I willing to risk the anointing for a dollar here or a dollar there in a project? And that's what really keeps me in line. And I always strive, but I'll tell you, it is a struggle, the stresses of everyday life, and then running a business. I'm, a woman-owned small business, and it's not easy, right? And so, I have to really work on reminding myself to stay in faith, because otherwise I slip into fear, and then that's when I become an easy prey.
No doubt. I'm not going to share the details of some of the conversations we've had, but I will say that you shared with me recently that you would never sacrifice your values or your faith for the bottom line. And you had an opportunity to do just that. I mean, the devil threw some big old numbers in front of you, and it wasn't even a question. You just knew the mission, vision, values, and belief system that is not just in your DNA, but is in the very DNA of your organization. And I've got to commend you on that because, a lot of business owners would have struggled with that and would have said, I've got mouths to feed, I have a family to feed, I will do whatever it takes to feed them. And I think we sometimes forget that it's not our job to provide for our families. Mm-hmm. It's not our job to feed those mouths. It's our job to take the opportunities that God puts in front of us and seize those opportunities, but it's also our job to recognize which opportunities are of God and which opportunities are of the evil one.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
That's a great point.
Man, maybe I could do this pastor thing one day, but in like 50 years.
You sold
ordained.
The challenge with a leader, and I own the company, so I lead, is the pressure, right? And it can get to you, but also, pride. God's working on me about a few things right now. Has there God worked on you about something?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And I have, if I don't do it, it might not get done right. I mean, that's just taking too much pride, right? And so I'm being worked on about that right now. And one of the things I've had to do, and we might not want to air this, but I might even want to tell on myself right now. But as a leader of a company, or a leader of a household, or a leader of a church, or a leader in law enforcement, I see it all the time. The pressure of doing it yourself, or getting it, so you feel like you've got a lot on you, and you think more highly of yourself that you need to be the one that does it, right? And so what I try to remember is there's two of us. There's me, and then there's God. But here's where, I have to work on things too. And I see a lot of leaders do the same. Is because we are very probably type A personalities, which is fantastic in business, but bad for faith, right? Because you feel like you can do it all. Is I've had to, those little tips and tricks. And one of the things I've had to do, this is, maybe embarrassing and telling on myself a little bit, but, I don't know if you've ever prayed about something and said, God, I've really got this big problem. I don't know how to solve it, whether it be in the business or personal or whatever the case. I'm going to hand it over to you. I'm laying this at your feet, right? Yep. And then days or weeks later, you start trying to fix it again.
Yeah,
or in my case, hours later, okay? Because I'm also impatient.
For sure.
So I pick it back up and I'm like, okay, that's just my pride, right? And so I've had to get a God box. Have you ever heard of those?
No.
So I have this beautifully box I ordered, and it's blessed, and it's got a cross on it, and it's shiny, makes me happy. And I got beautiful pink paper because pink makes me happy. And so now I force myself to date it, and I write it down. God, here's what my struggle is right now, and I don't know how I'm going to overcome it, but I am now giving it to you, and I'm laying it at your feet. It is yours now to handle. And then I put it in the God box. And when I find myself then trying to solve the problem on my own, because I know better than God, right? I force myself to go back to the God box, take that piece of paper out and say, okay, God, I'm apparently smarter than you are. I know more than you do. And I trust myself more than I trust you. So I'm going to now take it back off your hands and do it myself. That will humble you. If you get a God box, it will humble you.
So do you keep them all in there? Or is this
I
just
do.
like a massive pile at this point?
I have a massive pile.
I love it. I think it's super cool.
Yeah, I think I'd probably be in there sifting for all the stuff I put in there. All right, where's the stuff?
But when I start to act on my own and not wait for him, I say, okay, now I have to go back and have the humiliating conversation with God that I know I did say I was going to give it to you, but apparently I know more than you. So,
I was talking to Eli about my struggle to forgive people, right? Whether it be family and business, professional con artists took us for over $400,000.
I can relate.
It's never easy or comfortable. It's embarrassing to fall victim to something like that because I hate this like victim mentality, right? Everybody's a victim over everything. But there's sometimes that you really are, and you really get duped because you put your faith in people and not in God. And so I struggled with, quite frankly, wanting to kill a couple of people. And Eli said to me, we're at a dinner in DC. He had just gotten out of session, and he said, bro, I want you to remember something. He goes, you've kind of built a wall around your heart. I said, yeah, dude, people suck. I hate people. And he goes, well, that's cool. I understand why you did it. You built that wall to protect your heart and to protect your family. I said, that's right. I'm all proud of it. And this dude always just has a great way of humbling me. He said, well, you know what the problem is with the wall around your heart? I said, no, maybe it's not strong enough. Like maybe people could still break through it. And he goes, no, dude. He goes, the Bible talks about us having a spring within us, right? A spring within our heart, a spring within our soul. And when you build a wall around it, what happens when the water has no place to go? And he goes, you drown. I was like, man, like I love this dude, but sometimes I hate him because he breaks down those walls in sometimes a painful way. But struggling to forgive, I think, is something that probably, I know you and I both share. We've had conversations about it. And I'm sure that many of you who are watching this right now have had those same struggles. I would encourage you to turn back to the Word, right? And to look back on your past and realize that the hate that we've held on to or the anger that we've held on to has done nothing but drowned us, not drown the people that we were angry at. And so I'm just so grateful that you came out, that you were willing to share your story. Your organization and watching the work that it's done to transform this company is something that every American should be grateful for. Your focus on putting God first and allowing God to be the CEO and Jesus to be the COO of your company has shown that you are exactly the organization that our government can continue to trust to provide for the safety of not just those who aren't in this country legally, but those who are, and those who work in law enforcement every single day to hold the thin blue line. So thank you. I ask all of you to continue to pray for Macy and her organization, for all of her employees, and we just are so grateful that you all continue to follow this series. Greg, parting thoughts?
Just want to say thank you for sharing your story. I love the work that you're doing, and just keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Parting thoughts, Macy?
No, I think that's it. I'm just thankful to be here, and I appreciate you guys having me on, and the work that you guys are doing are just going to make a huge impact just in the world. I mean, just the show and you have been such a light, and
Thank you.
doing it the right way, and you give me way too much credit, but I think of you the exact same way. You know,
Thank
I'm
you.
striving to be more like you every day.
That's the wrong goal, I'll tell
Yeah,
you
be
that.
careful with that one.
Guys, thank you all so much for watching. Thanks for hitting that share button. God bless you all, and God bless America.